Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Hermit. And I've had other flashback. I'd started to mention it this time. I was at this wild animal park or safari in San Diego County, and about this is right around now, a little couple of days after Christmas. Very pregnant with my second child, and kept putting me into the water, very passive aggressive. Our first little girl was sitting beside him, and he was laughing, thinking it was so funny. But there was a underlying current in it of deep resentment and anger against me. And then I didn't mention, though, that we ended up having to stop for gas, and I had gotten the wet and freezing clothes off my belly. The baby was due January 9th, like within 2 weeks, 10, 12 days or something. And um, my pants, I pulled them down to get off my stomach, maternity pants, and top up. And then somebody had spilled gas, had let the pump overrun at a gas station. It was before they had the automatic stops. And my then husband, grabbed our little girl out of the car seat in the back, thank God, but wasn't concerned about me really. But then he did. Then he yelled, "Get out, get out!" Just sort of like, oh, you're a bother. That's how he'd treat me at times. But you're not used. See, it comes so much over time. It's so subtle at first, and it grows, and then you become very vulnerable, and you become groomed in a way, psychologically groomed, and bury things yourself. And it's always just tenuous that you don't know for sure. You think, oh, but then they'll do something nice. They're very cunning. It's the devil. They're sick. They are sick people, personality disorders. Sociopaths are sick people. Narcissists, when they're extreme like that, sick. And the combination is awful. But it was other courageous men that came and pushed our car out away from all this gas that was all over underneath the car. We could have just gone up one spark, and this baby would have been incinerated, the unborn baby. Turned out that she didn't come until January 29th. But, so that came up from my subconscious. And it has before, not every year, but, and then you deal with it. And really, you can forgive. So some of you may be wondering, well, why do you keep talking about it? My eldest, is sort of that, why don't you keep your divorce in your box? And I don't talk about these things with her. Well, we haven't talked, but I think maybe she remembers childhood. Things would come up. Somebody would call, my cousin would call, or my mother, and I would talk about things. You have to have someone to talk with. And I would try to make sure they weren't in the room, but she might have overheard. I'm sure she must have overheard, especially when we were in an apartment twice. So, and it was always something, even after, especially after he left, because he vowed to destroy me. He would spend the rest of his life destroying me. And because they get that way, they don't want you. But in their twisted minds, they blame you for ruining their fun, their ego, or they don't want anyone to think that they were at fault for the marriage falling apart. So it's a very sick, a very treacherous, emotionally and psychologically abusive, cunning, deceptive, lurking, everything that you read that the devil gets into that kind of a disorder, into that kind of a person. And you just have to keep reminding yourself what's behind it. And I believed in marriage. I didn't believe in divorce. I biblically thought, Adultery, that would be grounds, but otherwise stick it out. But then I realized later in life, after the fact, that adultery doesn't mean just adulterating with infidelity. Adultery is all kinds of wrongs to someone, to adulterate someone, or to be an adulterer in various ways, not just sexually or with infidelity. So, but, and, I know I would have had he hit me or something like that, I would have. Obviously, that was a drawing. I knew that. But there's amazing how many women take beatings and stay with, thinking, well, they'll change, or if I love them more, they'll change. But women also can be sociopaths and narcissists and be horrible. And men go through this. And I knew of someone who was married to someone with OCPD and was hard and didn't feel he could leave. And it was a very bad situation for him and for the spouse. Wasn't they weren't, it's too bad they didn't split apart. It was a very unhealthy situation. As it kept progressing, these things get worse. So, but they're very successful people. A lot can be very good. These are sicknesses, and nasty. Some of them, like sociopaths, psychopaths especially, but they're more insane acting. That isn't the way with sociopaths. They're more clever, intelligent, cunning in how they do it, very deceptive. And I don't think recognize a lot themselves. They're so twisted. But the victims, my daughter, for example, they've buried a lot of it. Don't even remember why we went to court and left, got out by a miracle, 2,200 miles away, which helped a lot. But your subconscious, Father Vincent just called to see how I was doing, because he happened to call at the wrong time when I was finally having an emotional reaction about 2 days after Christmas. And, it's been 40 years. But you can't always control your subconscious. Or situations that might trigger it. So then you get a grip and you move on. But I've decided to share these things because I think the more people are educated about it, the better. And for any of you who are in a situation like this, the only solution that you'll ever have is getting out, leaving. And it may mean you need to leave for a far away, too. I've known of women, their husbands still would come and get them or beat them up or do things like that. You get a protective order, and you're just lucky if the police get there in time, or if they look up that you have a protective order. It's a very tricky situation. Protective orders aren't all that great. They're good if they work for you, but and it's not always the police's fault either. So I had a protective order from my crazy neighbor in the Midwest, and most of the deputies wouldn't bother looking through all the file. They'd get the call. So it was just pointless, other than the people knew, sometime they could have had somebody come and arrest them, and should have, but it's a no-win situation with these people. So we move on. Compassion is the answer for people who are involved and who are wounded. To have great compassion, like such as for my children. I have great compassion. I do not blame my son for cutting me off. I was fooled. I was charmed. I look at him and think he is too now. Took him years, but he is now. And turned on me. So, it just happens. And here's this lovely card I got today in the mail from my eldest. So, you can't anticipate it, but I know not to call. Too much triggers her. At least that's the premise I'm going on. You never really quite know. But great compassion. There's no sense in blaming. And I'll take the blame. That's okay. I didn't do things all that right. And these are innocent children, now adults, but they're innocent. And they went through a lot, and I just keep praying. Love, pray, forgive, and then I have to live my life. So I found this poem that was given to me by God. I just am amazed at how great God is. I was talking about listening to Christ, placing our heads like John did, the Apostle John, place them on Jesus' heart and just listen. And I had been lifted. I might have to read this. I'll read this in the next video. Loving needs to go out. Mercy does. And I want to let this poem sink in. It came from a vision of my being lifted up on a life-size crucifix by Christ, and he placed my ear up against his bleeding, wounded side. And actually it was this ear up like that, and to his right was his right side, and the blood trickled down into my ear, and he said, listen to my blood, and all of these words came out in a beautiful message. So I'll share that in the very next video, but I want to sort of conclude this situation with marriages and children and adult children, because I thought today, the thought came to mind. Holy Spirit brought the thought to mind. People will want to know, why does it still bother you? Are you not healed from it? Did you not go to therapy to get help to deal with the past and all? Yes. Yes, you do. But it's the subconscious, and things will trigger the subconscious, and you don't have control over that. So hopefully I've answered about every question anyone might have, from why would you stay with something like that, or why wouldn't you recognize it? And especially me, with the nudges that I get, the insights. Yes, I would see things, but it's complex. You don't want to break up your family, or you're injured then. And how are you going to take care of yourself and them? Too many unknowns come up. So you keep trying, or you think you will. But even though you don't want to be married, they're mistreating you. You're not really that much in love anymore. But then you tell yourself how many married people are. You go through phases in marriages. And if you haven't been married for 50 years, you think, well, this is one of those phases. So there's always reasons. And you just pray, love, forgive, don't judge others or question too much. Question's okay. I'm happy. I was happy to answer those. I just don't want to go over it again. So I put a title on this with disorders in it, so I can point people to it, to the one that I did last night. And then we move on, because it's not worth spending time on what demonic things happen with people and their psyches, how sick people are. But it's a good question, though, I thought, for me to talk about why do I still have these flashbacks? And I've had therapy, different things, but haven't had ketamine treatments. But they're not that often. Well, maybe they are, but I handle them, and it's not the end of the world to cry, uh, so, and verbalize it, get it out again. It's like vomit. Vomit that you keep in is going to keep trying to come out, so it's best to get it out. Then you get better and you go on for a while. But it's with me, with the pain that I have and the accident. And he left after the accident. See, so there's a connection there. So when my pain's extra bad, it can also trigger it. And then, I can be upset because I didn't even want to go to this concert that he had tickets to. And he was trying to then guilt me that I wasn't fun. But we had children. I wanted to stay with play with the children. They're fun. We're a family, And he'd be gone a lot, as it turns out, too much for an elementary principal. But he would say at this or that conference in San Francisco to go to, or different places, in San Diego or wherever. And no, a lot of them weren't. Or meetings, lots of meetings, and just escapes with women. So, and he loved doing that. I think later when I read more about this, and when I was getting my doctorate in clinical psychology, I had my DSM-3R, and back in the late 80s, and it all fell into place. So, but you don't know at the time, but so I felt guilty. I better go, try to keep working on the marriage, to please him and get us more back together, out of this phase that I thought we were in, and that things would work out, but they would never have. So, all right. That's why the flashbacks, and why it keeps coming up. And I think I remind my daughter of, and it's very, you do the research of single mothers with chronic pain rearing the children, or of divorces, and they're often the ones that are blamed. And maybe bad things with the father then gets buried, but my kid, she knows she's not, she's sharp, and she's a very loving and lovely person. So I think it's just too hard. And as her mother, I want to protect her. I wish I knew for sure, I wish she would verbalize for sure. And I would just agree, well, we won't ever talk again. We won't, don't bother sending a card. Don't do anything that will remind you. I want you just to be not reminded of it. If it's going to be so upsetting for her. So, I will sacrifice. You do for others. I don't want my children hurting. So, God bless his real presence in us. God has the power over all evil. And I could talk about I mentioned the miracle in court. So many miracles of God in that marriage and out of it, of the good, and how God had to worked it out so that I would be a stay-at-home mom through disability. A lot of suffering, but it was a sacrifice that God willed, allowed, decided would be for the best. And it also helped us get out of state too. Otherwise not, and I would have been working or who knows what. And then what with the children? How would they have felt grown up? Maybe even worse without mom around much. But there I was with all the pain that causes damage. according to research, and it's sure borne out in the facts of my family situation. So, but I think I'm probably more stuck than they are, and then I am a reminder to them. And it's the pain. The pain is the link for me, the pain. And then if they are hurting, then, or like this situation with Christmas, then that triggers me then to be worried and upset and thinking what a waste. We could be talking twice a week even, and I could know all about her life and her children and having fun talking and what they're doing and all that. But I'm obviously a reminder that is painful. And so I don't want her to have pain. She's a beautiful person. And I want you to make sure that you know that. And I don't know what happened way back either. We don't know. None of us know. The doctors don't know. And so, who knows? God bless his real presence in us.